This is Facets of Connection, where we are transforming relationships within an evolving world. Brought to you by Relational Life Foundation and hosted by me, Sarah Melissa Oswald. This exclusive podcast series delves into the heart of human connection, exploring how we learn, love, and collaborate within a dynamic society. We'll uncover the power of respectful relationships and their essential role in the human experience. I invite you to embark on a journey with me to create a more connected, empathic world for future generations. Today's guest is Brett Goldstein, who draws from nearly 20 years of high-performance consulting, sales, and leadership. Brett specializes in building lead-from-the-front cultures, which are anchored in safety, in collaboration, and the kind of vulnerability that sparks true and meaningful high performance. He is also the founder of a podcast called Grow2Gold, where he shares deeply personal experiences and conversations with the top minds across many industries. Brett's core mission in every venture is to help others collapse timelines so that anyone seeking a high-performance lifestyle can get there faster and with greater connection. And with that, here we go. Thank you for taking the time to be on this podcast with me.
I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
Do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself? What's important to know about you?
For me, I have been in the sales and leadership and consulting world for the last decade and a half. And it's been an incredible journey. And I've just fallen in love with helping people to collapse timelines. And I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I've just found that being vulnerable about some of those mistakes and lessons learned, and just seeing that be the catalyst to shorten other people's timelines to where they want to go, is just the most gratifying part of life. And it's something that I'm just incredibly passionate about. And anytime I get an opportunity to share that, whether it be on a podcast like we're doing right now, or an opportunity and speaking, to speak in front of hundreds of people in person or virtually, it's just amplifies that reach. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity to spend some time with you and connect with you and your audience, and whatever I can do to add value, I'm here to do that today, and hopefully we can achieve that goal.
I've also heard you talk about it as your purpose. This is tied to your reason for being here on the planet. And it's not about sales. It seems to me that we're talking the same language. What the things that you're teaching your sales teams are similar things that I teach my clients. And I'm wondering how, just if you were to sum it up, how is this appropriate for us to be talking? How is your work also about relationships and human development?
Yeah. I mean, well, in the vein of sales, right? It's a transfer of energy. I genuinely believe as salespeople, we're all a conduit, and it's the ability to form a genuine connection between people and solve a need. And that's the connection piece, because without a connection, there is no ability for knowledge to freely transfer. There's going to be blocks. There's going to be skepticism. And the core, real fundamental of all of this is the ability to connect. And from a sales perspective, if you believe in your product and you think it serves a need and helps people genuinely, it's perfect. And it's the opportunity to add value to people and also make a living doing it. And that's what I'm passionate about, is the ability to connect those two dots and add a ton of value and help people in the process to become better individuals.
Yeah. You use the word connection. How is it about connection?
The more you connect and the more you're intentional about developing that skill, it's a muscle. And that's why I love working with you and the connection that we have, because as a sales professional, we practice something every single day that most people don't. We deal
What's
with
that?
we deal with more rejection on a daily basis than most people will deal with in a year. So when you're out flexing that muscle and you're learning quickly who your ideal client is, right? If I'm going to go have a conversation with somebody, I've gotten so good over the last 15 years at recognizing so quickly if someone's open to connection, if someone's open to having a conversation, or if it's going to be jamming a square peg into a round hole. And what's so interesting, and I talk about this with all of my salespeople, is from an outside sales perspective. A lot of people have done retail. A lot of people have done customer service. A lot of people have had those sorts of jobs, and maybe some of your audience members have those jobs now. And we're all trained in those arenas to serve with a smile. The customer's always right. And all of that is incredible advice. It's incredible guidance. But you're not always going to mesh with people. And I think one of the best parts about sales is if I go to have a conversation with you and you're just not open for that conversation, I'm not going to force it. It's not something you want to engage with. It's not going to be a good outcome for me. And it's just not going to work. So learning to trust your gut and that second brain and really be able to say, hey, there's a connection here. There's a willingness to converse. And that's going to be the first point. And when you get really good at recognizing that, everything becomes easier because you're no longer forcing it. And when that's a muscle you're developing on a day-to-day for your job, it becomes incredibly transferable to your personal world. And it overlaps so beautifully. And when I see people develop that skill on a professional side, and the text messages flow in months and years later of like, hey, some of this stuff that we've learned and we worked on in our time working together has made my life better. It's made me find my spouse. It's made me have a better group of friends. It's made me a better networker. It's unbelievable to see the ripple effects that come from practicing connection.
I love that. I love that, Brett. You know, I've heard about your work a bit here and there over the time that we've known each other, and I haven't put all that that hasn't all lined up in my mind because I hear you talk and I hear the way that you are helping your team come into better relationship with first themselves to be able to show up day after day after day and face no's and what that takes. And then also you've talked about creating a magnetic culture within your team. And so I've always assumed that when you talk about connection, you're talking about your team, which maybe you are as well. But there's this third level of connection with the potential sale. Yeah, I had clients or potential clients that I met with the other day, and it was not a vibe. You know, I felt it. I'm sure they felt it. Like I got off that call and I was like, that's not going to go anywhere. It wasn't a good fit. And to be able to sense that is such a skill in life, right? We are in community and in conversation with other human beings every day.
Yeah. And it's a scarcity versus abundance thing. And good on you, right? For being able to recognize that. Because a lot of people make decisions in this world just for financial gain. And if that wasn't going to be somebody that you felt like was going to be a value add and you were going to show up for your best for, and you'll always do your best no matter what. But if there wasn't going to be that connection that was real and transparent and genuine, it's going to be much harder to be able to get the result they want and your ability to be a conduit to help them to have that to happen. So I love this phrase of some will, some won't, someone's always waiting. And just there's 7 billion people in this world. And when you're saying no to something, it's allowing space for something that is right to show up. And I think a mistake a lot of people make is they're so wanting and willing to fit things in that have shown up that they end up looking back on this and they're saying, wow, I wasted a lot of time on things that didn't actually work for me. And call that a relationship, call it a career, call it a job opportunity, whatever that might look like, is a lot of people spend a lot of time on things that aren't actually filling their cup out of scarcity and just trying to force things because they don't believe that those other connections that could be a perfect fit for them are there if they just allow the space for them to come. And you have to say no in order to allow for that to be there.
One of my favorite business teachings is say no so that you can say your big yes. And with each client that comes through my door, I get to make that choice as well. It was going to be like pulling teeth working with that client. It wasn't going to be enjoyable for either of us. And so that was a clear no for me. Um, it's interesting that as a salesperson, you are tuning into the no's as well and not just forcing a conversation to happen. Why waste your time?
No. I mean, for me, when I first started in sales, I think this is a mistake that everybody has to make is you're so eager to get your business going that it's like, oh, this person's kind of interested. Let me force it. And with what I do, I'm in the renewable energy industry. We have clients for 20, 30 years. So these are long-term relationships. And when I first started in this business, I was just putting people into my pipeline that I was managing, that I was working with for months and months at a time before the projects were completed. And I just found that I was so drained talking to some of these people, not because they were bad people, but just because they weren't a mesh for me. And then a light bulb went off in my head probably about 6 months after doing this, where I'm like looking at my pipeline of clients and I'm like, I don't really feel like I connect with any of these people. So naturally, it made me feel like what I was doing every day wasn't super enjoyable. And I made the switch and I said, you know what, if I'm going to deal with these people, I might as well love them. And then I started to only go through that process and say, let me lead with my heart. Let me lead with my gut and I don't need to just sell everybody. I don't need to connect with everybody. And on the other side of that, I got more referrals than I could have ever have dreamed of because the connection they had with me when they said, hey, you got to talk to my guy, Brett. You have to check this out. They weren't referring the company I worked with at the time. They were referring me and the connection I made with them. And then I would text them, hey, I hope your daughter's soccer game went great. Hey, I'm going to be in your area. Let's get together. I'd love to get some coffee with you. And those were just organic connections that happened because I loved these people versus what I was trying to do before, where I wasn't really their cup of tea. They weren't really mine. And then it just felt like a business transaction. And that's not something people genuinely enjoy.
So you've turned this career into something that fills your cup.
I was 85% referral in 6 months. Like that is something that every salesperson dreams of, every business person dreams of. And it wasn't because I was the best salesperson. It's because I had clients that I connected with that wanted to connect me with people they knew they were like also, and that I would have had a similar connection with. And then it's just my phone started ringing with random numbers. And every time I got one of those, I'm like, this is either going to be a telemarketer or it's going to be a referral. And more times than not, it was a referral. And it was just, that's the greatest compliment you can give to somebody is to speak kindly about them and share their contact information. And it's just a beautiful circle that just kept opening. And I was just so happy about what it was. And it's a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. And I think a lot of people in business might feel like, wow, I just have to give everybody that I work with my best. Well, I would challenge you to say, what if you gave the right person your best and you allowed space for that person to show up and you weren't so desperate to build your client list, but you actually had faith that if you operated in abundance, you're going to end up building something bigger than you ever could have imagined.
No one likes to be sold hard to. You've
Not
turned
at
this
all.
sales work into love. How do I love these people? People love to be loved. They don't really want to
100%.
be sold to. They want to be loved. And you
That's
found a way
it.
to do that. Oh, Brad, I didn't know. That's so beautiful.
It's been fun.
And you've also talked to me about the way that you train your team. And you've done a lot of trainings for a ton of people to help them embody what you're talking about. And you've given me a list of themes that you could talk about. You told me about how you train your team to navigate adversity together. And one of the first things you said was, we deal with something that most people don't deal with nearly to the same degree of facing no's over and over. Is that what you mean by adversity?
Yes and no. I mean, there's so many outside, it's so interesting. No's are just, when you've been in sales for going on, 15, 20 years, it's kind of just like, water off a duck's back at this point. But yeah, when first people start, it's pretty demoralizing. And I just, it's kind of like a group workout class is the way I like to kind of talk about this topic, right? It's like, you asked me about magnetic culture before. I think these two topics go hand in hand.
Oh, perfect. Because I'm
The,
really curious about magnetic culture.
yeah,
What you built on it.
I'll tie the two together.
Great.
The reality is, when you see World War II veterans, right, or Vietnam veterans, right, you see these like war people, right, war healers that wear these hats all the time. They went through something together that bonded them together forever. The unique experiences and things like that. And by no means am I comparing going to war to being in sales. I'm just stick with me on this. But the reality is when you're willing to do something most people aren't, and you're doing it with people that are also willing to go fight a certain battle that most people aren't willing to do. 99% of people can't make it in sales, especially commission only sales. There's no health insurance. There's no 401k. There's no benefits. You're just pure hunting. And that's a hard thing for people to wrap their heads around. So when you have a team of people that are all willingly choosing to do something really hard together, it makes that task so much more palatable. And there's these moments where you want to quit. And that was me my entire first 30 days getting into sales. I'm like, this is really hard. I was sitting on a curb with my head in my hands crying. And I was like, I can't do this. And I remember to this day calling my mentor at the time and saying, hey, dude, I'm throwing in the towel. This is way too hard.
How many years ago was that?
2013, November 2013.
It's only 12 years ago.
Yeah. And I was sitting there and I'm like, that's it. I made the decision. I'm quitting. And I'll never forget it. He dropped everything he was doing, drove out to me, and we sat in his car together and just talked about what the repercussions of that would actually be. And he helped me to refocus. And he asked me at that moment, because I was so uncoachable when I first started. I'm like, I got this. I know how to do this. And he said to me, like, dude, you have the biggest ego out of anybody I've ever met when he first started in this. He's like, you really haven't been coachable. You thought you could come into this and kind of just make it happen. And we all knew you'd get to this point. But I have a question for you. He's like, are you ready to start over and actually be humble and coachable? Because I think you're meant for greatness in this industry, but not the way you started. And I went back through the process. I took more notes than anybody ever did. And I finished the rest of that year as one of the top salespeople on the team after wanting to quit 30 days in. And I wouldn't have gotten through that if I didn't have the support and love and mentorship of incredible leaders. So from that experience and seeing just the love and the care and the support that was wrapped around me during a very critical time, like I look back on the last 13 years of my time in this industry, and I've overseen 25,000 installations, billions of dollars in revenue in terms of the impact in the environment, helping to put 25,000 solar systems on people's homes and counting. It's monumental. That translates to forests of trees replanted in terms of carbon offset. So it's been an incredible journey. But had I not had that one moment 30 days in of somebody actually caring about me, I wouldn't have been here. I wouldn't have done any of this. So I look at that example and I just want to create that. And I want to help that to be created organically. One of the thing I love more than anything is when I go to a sales meeting and I see people in the corner having these conversations of just love and support and connection for each other over something really hard. And it could be something as simple as, hey, Sarah, I had a really tough day yesterday out trying to make sales and connecting with people. And that other person steps in and shares their experience. And then it just becomes this, hey, we do really hard things together. And that brings up that workout class. There's probably not a single person that wants to be there, but the minute they start doing a workout and other people look at the other people in the room pushing themselves, it makes it easier for you to do hard things as well. And there's only so much you can do by yourself. There's only so much of an impact you can do by yourself. And when you have teams of 40, 50, 60 people that are all rowing in the same direction and all inspiring each other to do things that are difficult, the impact that makes on a macro level from one person being that person that says, let's go. And it could be the newest person on the team. It can be the person that just started. It can be the person that's been doing this forever. But the awesome thing that I see is there's nothing better than when a new person enters the arena and they come in and they're practicing the basics and they're being visible and they're inspiring the people that have been doing this for a long time to get back to the basics and start doing things they were doing in the beginning all over again. It's just the craziest, most fun thing to see. because inspiration can come from anywhere, and it can come from the bottom up. It can come from the top down. It can happen laterally. And I just love seeing those moments happen organically, because you never know which one of those moments are going to be a defining moment in somebody's life.
Mm. I love that. Inspiration can come from anywhere, not from the top down.
That's when you know you have something. That's when
That's
momentum
so
is started.
beautiful. So that as new people come into your team, I imagine they feel a sense of wonder about what's happening there. The way that your team's talking to each other and supporting one another through hard days and challenges. Like, we can do hard things together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also this piece of, again, I've been doing this so long that what people generally do when they enter a new opportunity, a new job, is they kind of just sit back and they wait to see how things go, right? And they wait to get results if you're in sales before they start speaking up and adding value. And the thing I'm always very conscious of, and I train every one of my leaders to understand the importance of this, is to reach out to these people while they're going through training, even while they're interviewing for the job and that haven't even joined the company or the team yet. And we're very clear in our messaging of come in and be visible from the beginning. Don't wait to get results, because the results come when you're being visible. The results come when you come in and you make it incredibly obvious that you're doing the work. You're studying, you're writing out your scripts. You're not having to think about the words. You know your product, and you're posting those photos to your team chats or sharing them in the team meetings and showing people you're doing this work. And a lot of people think it's like ego or bragging. And that's often what I find we have to navigate the most, because we live in this social media world where it's like, if I boast that I'm doing work, it's bragging. And I actually think that's so backwards.
Yeah.
When I see a new person come in and they're writing out their script every day and they're dating it and they're posting it to our team chats, or they're at the gym in the morning, or they're sharing a meditation practice that they're doing, or a passage from a book they're reading, or a prayer they're doing, whatever it might be. It's the new person that comes in that has no business being this vocal and visible, that always ends up having the most success and getting results the fastest. And we preach that over and over and over and over again. And the teams that do the best have the new people that feel the safest and the most connected to come in and do that stuff. And you can set your watch by that team's success skyrocketing, because they've created the safest culture. And that's what I mean when I say magnetic cultures. People that come in and they're like, I don't have to wait to get involved because I feel safe being in this environment and being willing to show myself. And it's magic what happens every single time.
I imagine it's not just safety, but also that they look around and feel the vibe and say, I want what they have.
Mm-hmm. And here's the roadmap on how to do it.
And that's what you help them with. The road.
And the roadmap, it's not what you think it is. I've worked with people that make $5-10 million a year in sales. And I don't say that but the reason I say that is because you spend some time with these people, you watch them go on a sales call, you watch them sit down with clients, and you think you're going to see the most magical thing. And you think you're going to see these people have certain word tracks or things they bring up that nobody else knows. And Sarah, you would be shocked. When you sit down with these people, they don't do anything special in terms of the sales process. They don't have any knowledge that hasn't been shared a million times from a million different people. What they're incredible at is connecting on a human level with the person sitting in front of them and making them feel safe and making them feel vulnerable enough to share their real concerns about why they haven't moved forward yet with whatever the product or service is. And they get this person to bring down their walls and create trust. And that's the entire process. And it starts with what you're doing in your personal life. It starts with the commitments that you're making with yourself. And the bottom line is, it's much easier to honor commitments you make with yourself publicly and with a team setting, because there's that added layer of accountability, than it is by yourself. And that's why people join high performance sales teams. That's why people go to group workout classes. That's why people do things with other humans, because it creates accountability and connection. And on the other side of that is results you never otherwise could have dreamed of. And that's what I'm obsessed with, creating and building those environments that allow for people to achieve uncommon results that they never would have been able to do by themselves. That is what it's all about.
We have a lot in common, Brett.
And I know we do. That's why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah. But you know, what's so striking to me is if I were to look at from the outside, objectively, I might think, well, bottom line is numbers, right? The sales actually matter. But what you seem to be committed to over and over is actually transforming people's lives, not just within the sales culture, within the team that you're creating, but within their entire life, of having the ability to have authentic connection with others, to build trust and safety with the people around them. And I love that you're so connected to the whole, the collective, and how important that is, that we don't do things in isolation. We are meant to be communal species. We are.
Yeah. I heard a quote a couple of years ago, and it's resonated with me and just stands out exactly with what you're talking about here. But in 20 years from now, you're never going to remember how much money you made this year, but you're always going to remember the people you made it with.
Mm-hmm. I say something similar to my wedding clients. I say, no one's going to remember what color napkins you had at your wedding, but they will remember how they felt at your ceremony.
There you go. Yeah, it's just I've worked with so many people that have made in a week what they used to make in a month. And when their thermostat setting goes up and they see that check hit their bank account, they think it's going to be like, my life has changed forever. And maybe your financial pressures have gone away, and that's awesome, right? But at the end of the day, money is never going to make you happy. Sales numbers are never going to make you happy. What's going to make you happy and what's long lasting is developing your skills and your ability to handle tough things and navigate tough conversations and understand how to find your tribe and be able to connect with people in a deep way that's going to create meaningful connections. I've never had a resume, Sarah, ever. Everything I've ever done in my life, and I've accomplished some pretty cool stuff, has been from word of mouth connections, from showing people what I'm all about, backing up those words with action on a daily basis, and just treating people well. That's where opportunity comes from. It's not about money. It's not about status. It's not about resume. When you really live this, you can't fake it. And other people want to be a part of it. It's magnetic. It's gravitational. When people do better because they're in your environment and they're in a culture that you've helped to facilitate, there's no denying that.
I'm so inspired by this. Just on a personal note, I've stepped away from my director role at Relational Life Foundation, and now I'm thinking about, what do I want to do with my private practice? And I don't, I think about sales and marketing, and I'm not really into it. It doesn't feel like something I want to put my energy into, but from the way you talk about it, I am game. I'm so jazzed about it, about building something that people can come and be a collective and say yes to because they're going to get great results.
Yeah. And then all you got to do is provide such a great experience, those first initial people, and then they become your raving fans. There's an incredible book called Raving Fans, where it's like, if you just deliver such an exceptional experience to these people, they're going to go scream it from the rooftops for you. And everyone thinks sales is like this lifetime perpetuity thing you have to do. That's really not how it works. All it takes is just delivering such an exceptional experience to your foundational clients, and they become your top salespeople because
it's so true.
They've had the experience. And then it just takes care of itself. But yeah, I would challenge everybody to reframe their attitude and perspective on sales and marketing. It's the lifeblood of anything you're doing. And my question to you would be, what if you don't create that community, right? Think about the impact, right? What if I didn't get over that first 30-day hurdle and I didn't have that person put their arm around me and help reshape and reframe this, there would be 25,000 less solar installs. There would be trees that wouldn't have been planted. Like, and what I love about the company I'm with now is we have an incredible partnership with an organization called Give Power. And every time we do an installation anywhere in the United States, we're in 38 states plus Puerto Rico, we donate enough clean water and electricity in a third world country for somebody for 25 years. So the impact we make every time somebody creates revenue out of thin air from a relationship they generated, it's generational. And when you start thinking about sales and marketing from that perspective, it's not really work. It's just what we do as people.
You feel so good about the impact you're making that it's easy to connect and share what you're.
And if somebody doesn't connect with you, oh well.
Oh well. Yeah, not the right fit. Mm-hmm. You know, you speak about generational, and I think I see my work in the same way. I love the company that you're working for, the way that they're giving first and really committed to transforming the world, not just the people who can afford solar panels, but generational. You're impacting the future generations, right? And I'm doing that through teaching relationship skills by helping people stop living out dysfunctional patterns from their own family of origin, doing something different with the next generation, perhaps, if they have kids.
Powerful.
Powerful. Powerful.
And the reality is, I'd be remiss if I didn't address this one point. I know this is not about, solar or any of that stuff, but the other side, the reason I work here is not solar used to be reserved for the wealthy. It used to be reserved for the person that could write a check for $30,000. The reason I work for this company is because the mission is not just global impact. That's what we strive for all the time, but it's to make renewable energy more accessible to average families. And when something has a $30,000 price tag up front, it's kind of the opposite. So what we do is we've created some really unique creative financing and leasing options where all of our clients actually pay us nothing up front to have these panels installed. We warranty everything for 25 years. We put the panels on the roof, and then all they're doing is replacing. It's not an additional expense, because if you have solar, you're producing energy from your own roof. You're not buying it from your utility company. So you have a level of independence, but we're just replacing your monthly electric bill that you're paying anyway with something cheaper and cleaner that has an end date. So this is not an additional expense. We save people between $50,000 and $100,000 in money they would have paid to the utility company without any money up front. So incredible. We're really helping people to put their kids through college. We're helping people to have better Christmases. We're helping people to save their money because most people think with their pocketbooks. And it's just an easy thing to do if this is not something you're paying up front for. So I know this is not a solar conversation. It's not that, but I wanted to make sure people understood that, because my mission here is to really help people, like, overall, right? Holistically. Can we make the planet better? Can we make connections easier? Can we help people to hold on to more of their money? Like, we're living through a tough time. People's financial situations are challenging right now. And it's just awesome when people have more money at the end of the month to put towards the things they actually want to put it towards. And what we do really helps people to do that. So that's why I've been in this industry now for 13 years.
I didn't know all of this. I'm really touched by it. Thank you for sharing it.
Of course.
It makes a lot of sense how you're so passionate about your work.
My job would be really hard if I had to get people to give me $30,000 up front. But yeah, it's so much more. It's so much more than that. It's, the connection piece of all of this. And I know that's the predominant driving force of your podcast here is connection, but that's everything with clients, with other people on the team, with admin support staff. You could just feel it. Like, when it feels like everybody's in sync and everybody's rowing in the same direction, the accomplishments just happen organically. And that's what every company, every relationship, every family is striving for. It's just that this feels natural, and it's fun when you hit that.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to share anything about your personal journey?
Yeah. I mean, it's, it sounds like at some level from somebody listening to this that, I kind of know what I'm talking about on the business side.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to the personal stuff, like there's a lot going on. And Sarah's actually a coach of my wife and I, and there's some things we're working through on the personal side, and we're all learning every single day. Like things are hard. Relationships are incredibly challenging. By no means do I have it all figured out. And I think I'm learning to separate a lot of it's not as connected as I think it is, right? And I want it to be. Having the ability to separate the personal from the professional and be able to show up and have boundaries and be able to say, hey, let's trust some of this stuff that we're building to work without needing to be so involved in it, to free myself up to be this same person in a personal setting. Like it's really, really hard to do that, especially when
Yeah.
you're
We were
so
just
passionate about
talking
what you're
about,
doing.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no problem.
What was the last sentence you said?
No, it's just really understanding boundary setting, right? When you're so passionate about what you're doing, which is kind of that's the price you have to pay to build something that's impactful. It's being able to shut it off. And then also being able to give that same love and attention and care to the relationships you have personally. And it's hard to play both sides of that. And that's been a challenge for me for sure.
No, what I was going to reflect on is earlier on, I was saying how neat it is that you're teaching people skill sets that don't just apply to their sales work, but can also apply to all their relationships and in their families and their partnerships and with their children, perhaps even.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying is actually it might not be that easy to transfer these skill sets. It takes a certain level of awareness and humility, actually, to be able to take this skill set and say, oh, I'm really good at this in work. I'm great at teaching other people how to do it, but how do I take that and transform my partnership in a similar vein without being like the expert or the teacher? Or
it's a level of indifference that's really easy to have in a sales conversation, because like I want to help this person. Like I know what I have to offer is awesome.
there it
But
is.
in a personal setting, there's so much more of an emotional connection where you're like, I care so deeply about this. Like you need to see things this way. And you have that level of like pressure to make sure that it's working. And it's really hard to do that with not having a level of indifference.
Absolutely. Well, if indifference is the thing that keeps you alive and keeps you going and able to handle the no's, and I mean, you've mastered that skill set of indifference, and it allows you to have these flourishing connections. But in your personal relationships, indifference can actually come across as, it can be a real desert if you're too indifferent about the outcome of your partnership.
Yeah. And then it's the other side of the controlling piece of I need this to be a certain way, and creating that sort of pressure, because that's going to have the same effect, right? It's going to create disconnection. It's not going to be, so it's really hard, because what works on the professional side creates alienation and disconnection sometimes on the personal side. So it's knowing how to navigate and wear both of those hats. And it's really hard, especially when you've over indexed on the professional side and you've gotten so good at that and you've been rewarded at such a high level for it.
Hey, I just thought of your next topic to teach your team.
What's that? Indifference.
Just this, like, how do we take these skill sets and make sure that they're applicable in all areas of our lives?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I mean, it seems important, right? We need a healthy home life to have a successful work life. So perhaps it could be a boon to your company if you were to support your team in seeing how they take these skill sets and transfer them over to their partnerships.
I mean, that's the best part. I mean, it's, from a conversation like this, now there's a content topic to train on and build something around and reflect with, and the ripple effects of that. And I listen to a ton of podcasts, I read a ton of books, and just the opportunity to spend some time in reflection and be able to create some content around that stuff and train on it. And it's just, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. You really have no idea how something is going to impact somebody. Sometimes I show up and I have an awesome training planned or a meeting that I'm not sure how it's going to go. And then I'll share it with a couple hundred people, and it'll be the one that I'm like, I'm not really sure if this one's going to check that box. that I hear from people 6 months later and they're like, that was the turning point for me. And I'm like, wow.
Hmm.
So I've just stopped trying to figure it out, and whatever feels organic in the moment, I run with it. And it's been the biggest blessing. Like you and I talked about this the other day, is just this premise of like overthinking and perfectionism and needing things to be a certain way. And I think that just does such a disservice because we live in such an edited, kind of filtered world where it's like, what if people just saw the unedited version? What if you just showed up as the most vulnerable and authentic version of yourself and gave permission through that process for other people to see you doing that and just
Permission to
understand?
others to also not have to be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, in the vein of connection, when I first started, when I was trying to do my first 30 days in this business, and the reason it was floundering is I had the privilege to learn from some of the best in the industry. And I'm like, what would this person do at the initial contact? What would this person do when in discovery, getting to know the customer's needs? What would this person do when presenting the problem as to why they should want a solution? And it was crazy because as I started to try to do this on my own, I tried to be 5 different people. And the thing I was missing was me. So in terms of connection, how can you connect if you're trying to be a boiled down version of something you think you should be, or another version of somebody else that you think is better than you at something?
Mm-hmm.
The thing that was missing from all of this was me. And when I started that, it was like people saw who I was and all the imperfections and the fact that I was new. And people were so willing to help me because I wasn't trying to be something I wasn't. And that is the enemy of connection, especially in a sales role, because people can feel that. You can feel right away when somebody's trying to be somebody they're not to get you to say yes. That's what gives sales the slimy used car salesperson. That's just not what sales is. It's just, and it never should be.
I love this. There's so many directions that we could take this conversation. I was just reflecting on how your podcast, Grow to Gold, does just that. You're saying, I'm not worried about background noise. I'm not worried about it being scripted or perfect or anything. I just show up and have a conversation, and it's real, and it's me, and it's them, my guest, and it's perfect, perfectly, imperfectly human. I think that's what we all should be striving for.
Certainly easier.
I mean, I'm saying that to our listeners, but I'm also saying it to myself. I have a little bit of a perfectionist quality in me as well that I've been in recovery on, really working on it. Yeah, putting out a podcast like this pushed that edge for me. And I've had to just be okay, like other people are publishing it and editing it, and I have to be okay with whatever they put on the internet. Like, if I have to oversee every single video that goes out, I'll never get anything done.
No. And people can tell. They can tell, right? Everything is
overly polished.
Everyone can tell. You could tell. It's no matter how big my podcast gets or where things will go, but it's like, I feel like I'll always leave a little bit of that like stutter or, hey, I didn't mean to say that. This is what I meant, because it's just, then you feel like you're actually listening to a real conversation. I want my podcast to feel like we're having coffee together and overhearing an awesome conversation happening next to us. And you're getting the privilege to hear something that is happening between 2 people that are just in connection, and you're just getting nuggets from, and it just feels real. It doesn't feel like there's an agenda to this. It doesn't feel like you're trying to get a point across that you need to 100% make sure you got across. Like, if anything, that dilutes the value of the conversation.
I think you're right. I'm inspired by this, Brett. Thanks for giving me permission to be a little more messy.
It's unbelievable. You find so much more connection and fellowship when that's what you're doing, because it's something everyone can relate to.
I know that one of the other things that you teach your team about is having the ability to be resilient when things get really busy, not redlining their lives, how taking action can alleviate anxiety.
Action eases anxiety for sure. And then another cool topic is why anxiety can be your superpower. But it's one of those things where we all have this tendency to overthink, and it's I like to think of the gap as like the action anxiety gap. It's like the minute you feel anxiety, the longer you drag it out, the harder it's going to be for you to take action. So there really has to be this moment that you train yourself for, of just the minute you feel that anxiety of like, I don't know if I should do this. This is scary. Maybe I can delay it, snoozing the alarm, whatever that stuff looks like. I don't want to go work out today. I don't want to meditate. I don't want to make that phone call. I don't want to have that tough conversation. We're all human. The minute you feel that, you've delayed something before. We all have. And the longer you kick the can on something, the harder it is to go back and close the loop, and the more anxiety you have around it. And then there's
Yeah.
this moment where you just go take the leap before you're ready or not. And when you do it, it's always this calmness, and it's always this like, oh, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah, for sure.
So
What you're
that's what
talking
I
about
mean.
are really concrete examples of when there is action to be taken. Um, what if the anxiety is not about a particular thing that needs action and just an overwhelming sensation of anxiety in my body or in my life?
Yeah. I mean, it's for me, and you and I have been working on this quite a bit, but it's, feeling your feet, but, beneath you, and taking some breaths and just getting to that moment where you're just like, yeah, there's actually nothing to do right now. This is all kind of imaginary, right? It's keeping me in a place where I'm actually feeling more stuck, and sometimes taking crazy action on something just for the sake of keeping busy takes you further backwards.
Yeah.
There's so many people I know that will just continue to just have to stay busy to avoid actually those moments of being able to go deep and say, you know what, like, I don't need to do anything right now. And it's in those moments of you being able to really feel that and ground yourself that it goes back. And I think it's a beautiful way to kind of finish this process, where it's just sometimes the thing to do is just kind of breathe and not feel like you got to make things perfect, and not feel like you always have to be busy 24/7, 365, and just let things work themselves out. Create space for that perfect client, create space for you to just be here and attract that person, or be that person for yourself that's actually gonna make you feel what you want more than anything, to just be
Mm,
present.
to be present. Yeah, I know that some, just speaking personally, I've had anxiety come up in my body, and I've developed a practice of when that happens, just actually stopping, not taking that next action, because I could spend all day taking action and
Yeah,
yeah, I might feel accomplished, but it doesn't actually solve from the anxiety. I think it depends on what the anxiety is about, right? For me, it was just like
that's for
this
sure.
innate something that was living inside me. So I would pause and just check in with my little young self and just say, what are what's hurting right now? Or what are you longing for?
Mm.
And usually it's one or the other, sometimes both. Maybe there's a pain and maybe there's also a longing that I'm not acknowledging
Yeah,
enough.
it's a self-awareness thing for sure, right? It's knowing which is which, right? If it's a delaying doing something is causing you anxiety, I think that action piece is really helpful. But sometimes it's just you're anxious, like you said, for kind of no other reason than just a feeling is popping up in your body, and you have to have a process in place that allows for you to let that pass, and you're not just masking it with more action. And I think that's really powerful.
Thanks for talking about this with me. I think it's an important topic because we live in a really fast world. And I
Mhm.
imagine we might not be the only ones who know what anxiety feels like.
And it's only getting faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Brett, I've really enjoyed hearing about your work and listening to the gifts that you have to share. I didn't anticipate that our conversation would be this rich. I loved the way that your work and my work blends super well together. It's
We're
a
all
really good fit.
we're all in the people business.
We're
That's what
in
it
the
comes.
people business. You bet.
That's what it comes down to. And I always know podcasts go super well when it goes by. When you said we were coming up on an hour, I'm like, it feels like 5 minutes.
Right?
But I genuinely think that's how most of our conversations go. So I don't know why I'm surprised that this felt the same way. But thank you for to jump on here. I think this was really, really impactful. And I'm glad we had the opportunity to do this.
Any final words that you want to share? Any last wisdom that you'd like to drop?
Oh, I shared a quote with you before we got into this that I think is pertinent to maybe end with. And it's where there's comfort, there is no growth. And where there's growth, there is no comfort. So it's really just getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And just that's what's on the other side is connection and finding a bunch of people that are willing to do that as well. Because it's always easier to do things together than it is to try to go do things by yourself.
Let's do it. Let's do some things together. I like it. Thanks for listening to this episode of Facets of Connection. This show is brought to you by Relational Life Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to ending the chronic epidemic of loneliness by fostering community and transforming relationships. Its mission is focused on building stronger, more connected communities through research on relational health and through accessible therapeutic services and education. If you'd like to support this work, visit relationallifefoundation.org. Your generosity helps us make relational support available and accessible to more communities. On another note, I'd love to hear from you. Whether you've taken a workshop through Relational Life Foundation, if you're working with an RLT therapist, or simply if you have a guest or a topic to recommend for a future episode of Facets of Connection. I want to know what's resonating with you, what's shifting, or what are you still sitting with? Send me a quick voice memo or an email to Sarah with an H at facetsofconnection.com. Your story might even be featured in a future episode. I look forward to hearing from you. Facets of Connection is created by me, Sarah Melissa Oswald. Our executive producer is Carrie Allison Maloney, and our digital producer is Kim Novak. Follow us here on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts. Thank you in advance for your support. See you soon.